My parents gave my inheritance to my drug-addict cousin because he needed it more. Now they're begging me to come home after losing everything. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, my parents made me feel like I was second best. I wasn't rebellious. I didn't cause trouble, and maybe that's what made me invisible. I did what I was supposed to, studied hard, worked early jobs, stayed out of fights. But in my family, silence wasn't peace. It was background noise behind someone else's chaos. And that chaos always had a name. Derek. Derek was my cousin, the golden disaster everyone couldn't stop talking about. He was the troubled soul, the misunderstood kid who just needed one more chance. Every family gathering turned into a group therapy session about Derek's latest downfall. Rehab, jail, lost job, stolen car. There was always a story and always an excuse. My mother would sigh and say, "He's been through so much," while I sat there, invisible at the dinner table, holding the degree I worked for years for. When I got promoted at 25, I told my parents I wanted to take them out to celebrate. My dad barely looked up from his phone. "That's nice, son, but your aunt just called Derek's missing again," and that was it. My accomplishment replaced by panic over someone who'd done nothing but wreck himself. That night, I learned a painful truth in my family. Love wasn't earned through effort, it was earned through tragedy. Over time, I stopped sharing. I stopped expecting anything. I just worked, saved, and kept my head down, telling myself it was okay to be the steady one. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Like my worth was only measured by how much I didn't need them, and as I'd soon learn, that quiet distance I'd built wasn't protection. It was the space they'd one day use to betray me in a way I never saw coming when my grandfather passed away. He left behind more than just memories. He left a legacy, a small construction business, a few acres of land, and some savings meant for the next generation. For once, I thought the family would see me as someone worthy of responsibility. My father even told me, his hand on my shoulder, "You've earned this, son. You've always been the reliable one." I remember that moment so vividly. It was the first time I felt seen. For months, I helped sort through paperwork, met with lawyers, and made sure everything was handled properly. Derek didn't even show up to the funeral until halfway through, eyes bloodshot, smelling like smoke. But somehow, the moment he walked in, everyone rushed to comfort him. My aunt cried into his chest, saying, "He's trying so hard." Meanwhile, I was left standing in the corner, holding the documents that kept our family's inheritance from slipping through the cracks. Later that night, I overheard my parents talking. My mom said softly, "You know, Derek could really use some of that money. He's finally clean. Maybe this could help him start fresh." My father sighed, but didn't argue. My stomach tightened. I wanted to believe they wouldn't actually do it, that they'd finally reward effort, not pity. When the lawyer finalized everything, I was told my portion would help me buy my first home. I'd spent my whole life being responsible, careful, self-sufficient. For once, I thought life was leveling the scale. My parents smiled and said, "This is your time, son." But as Derek began showing up more often, charming, apologetic, sober-looking, I felt something shift. My mother kept saying, "He's really turning his life around." And somewhere deep down, I knew that promise they made to me wouldn't stay mine for long. At first, I wanted to believe Derek had finally changed. He started visiting on weekends, wearing clean clothes, talking about therapy, and volunteering at a shelter. He smiled more, cracked jokes, even hugged my mom every time he left. "I'm done with my old life," he'd say, looking me dead in the eye. "I want to make things right." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But something about his charm felt rehearsed, like he was reading lines from a script written for forgiveness. My parents fell for it completely. My mom baked for him again. My dad lent him tools from the garage. I watched it all unfold like déjà vu, the same cycle of hope, disappointment, and denial. One evening, over dinner, Mom said with tears in her eyes, "It's just so good to have family back together again." Derek smiled at me and said, "I owe you one, man. You've always had it easy. Guess I'm finally catching up." That line hit like a brick. Easy. I'd worked every day since I was 16. Never asked for help. Never took a dime I didn't earn. Yet in his eyes, and worse, in my parents', my stability wasn't strength. It was privilege. That night, I caught my mother whispering to my father, He's trying so hard. Maybe we should help him get back on his feet." "Help him how?" my father asked, but his tone was already soft, too soft. I knew where this was heading. The next time Derek visited, he brought paperwork, some business idea he wanted to pitch. My mom made coffee, my dad listened, and I sat there realizing that every compliment, every dinner, every smile was just a build-up to one thing. He wasn't here to heal the family. He was here to cash in on it. I remember that day vividly. The air was heavy, the house unusually quiet. I'd stopped by to drop off some documents for my dad when I overheard them talking in the living room. My mom's voice trembled with guilt. "He doesn't have to know yet," she whispered. My father sighed. "It's just a loan. We'll make it right later." My heart dropped. I stepped closer, pulse hammering as she continued. "He'll understand. Derek needs this more than he does." When I walked in, their faces drained of color. My mom froze mid-sentence. My dad stood up like a kid caught stealing. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice flat, controlled, the kind of calm that comes before something breaks. They exchanged glances before my father said the words that would burn into my memory. "We gave your share of the inheritance to Derek. He's turning his life around, and he needed a second chance." For a moment, everything went silent, like the world held its breath. Then I laughed, but it wasn't out of humor. It was disbelief. "You gave away my future. The money I earned, the legacy Grandpa left us." My mother stepped forward, her eyes glossy. "Honey, you're doing fine. You have a good job, savings, stability. Derek has nothing. He needs it more." I looked at them, the same people who taught me to work hard, save, and never rely on others, now preaching about fairness through pity. "So, because I didn't ruin my life, I don't deserve what's mine," I said quietly. My dad's answer was, "A week. You'll rebuild, son. You always do." That was it. The final confirmation of what I'd always suspected. In their eyes, I wasn't family. I was the safety net they never hesitated to cut when someone else fell. I left that house with shaking hands, and for the first time, I didn't look back after that day. I didn't pick up their calls for weeks. My phone would buzz with messages. "We just need to talk. You're overreacting. Family comes first." Each one felt like a slap. Family came first only when I was expected to sacrifice something. When it came to fairness, I'd always been last in line at work. I buried myself in projects, trying to pretend everything was normal. But the silence in my apartment hit different now. It wasn't peace, it was exile. I replayed that moment in their living room over and over, wondering if I'd somehow caused it. Maybe being too independent made them believe I didn't need them. Or maybe, deep down, they just didn't value someone who never created chaos. My friend Marcus noticed something was off. Over beers one night, I finally told him everything. He stared at me for a long time before saying, "Man, you've been the family's emotional punching bag for years. They don't love you for who you are. They love you for what you fix." His words stung because they were true. Months passed. The inheritance, the house I'd planned to buy, the life I'd started building in my head, was gone. But worse than the money was the betrayal itself. My parents still called, mostly to update me on Derek's progress. He'd joined another rehab program, relapsed, joined again. And every time, they defended him. "Addiction is a disease, not a choice," my mom said in a voicemail, her voice cracking. I almost called back, almost. But then she added softly, "You've always been strong enough to live without help. Derek never was." That line gutted me, because in that moment, I realized they didn't just take my inheritance, they took my right to be cared for. And deep down, I knew they weren't done breaking me yet. It was about 8 months later when I finally caved and agreed to meet Derek. He'd been blowing up my phone for days, saying he needed to talk face to face. Against my better judgment, I met him at a small diner near the edge of town, one my parents used to take us to when we were kids. The smell of burnt coffee and old vinyl booths brought back memories I didn't want. Derek showed up late, looking thinner, jittery, but oddly confident. He slid into the booth, avoiding my eyes. "Before you say anything," he started, "I just want to thank you." I frowned. "Thank me? For what?" He took a shaky breath. "For what you gave up? For letting Mom and Dad help me out." My stomach turned. "Letting them," I repeated. He hesitated, then dropped the bomb that would change everything. They told me you offered your share, he said quietly. Said you wanted me to have a chance to rebuild. They even showed me messages, texts from you. My chest went cold. Messages, he nodded. Yeah, Mom showed me a thread where you said you didn't need the money, that you wanted me to have it. I just stared at him. Derek, I never said that. I never wrote those messages. His expression flickered confusion, then guilt. Then who did? The realization hit us both at once. My parents hadn't just given him the money. They forged the story, maybe even the messages, to keep him from seeing the betrayal for what it was. They didn't want to be the villains. They wanted to rewrite it, so I looked like the hero who chose to give it all up. Derek leaned back, shaking his head. They lied to both of us, he whispered, and for the first time, I saw the truth in his eyes, not as the addict or the manipulator, but as another victim of the same family lie. That's when something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. I wasn't going to fight for their love anymore. I was going to walk away from it. Walking away from my family felt like cutting off a limb, painful, but necessary to survive. I didn't block their numbers right away. I just stopped replying. Weeks turned into months, and for the first time in my life, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like freedom. I focused on rebuilding, new apartment, new city, new circle of friends who didn't know me as the responsible one. Just me. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into every project, climbed higher than I ever had. My boss started trusting me with bigger contracts, and within a year, I got promoted. The same drive that once kept my family afloat was finally being used for myself. I met someone too, Claire, a quiet, grounded woman, who asked about my dreams, not my duties. For once, I wasn't someone's emotional crutch. I was just a man figuring himself out. But freedom has a way of feeling temporary when your past won't let go. My mom sent pictures of the family house empty now, except for dust and guilt. It's so quiet without you, she wrote, as if silence was a curse I'd given them. My father called once, his voice worn. Your mother misses you, he said. I could hear the shame behind it, but not enough to sound like regret. Claire noticed the tension every time my phone buzzed with their names. You don't owe them forgiveness, she said gently one night. You owe yourself peace. I wanted to believe that. But deep down, part of me still needed closure, the kind that didn't come from silence, but from truth. And just when I thought I was finally done with them, life found a way to drag me back home. It started with a call from my Aunt Linda, a voice I hadn't heard in over a year. Sweetheart, she said, her tone trembling, you need to know what's happening back home. My stomach tightened. She told me Derek had overdosed again, that he was in the hospital, and that my parents were falling apart emotionally and financially. They've lost everything, she whispered. The house, the savings, even the business. All gone. For a moment, I just sat there, frozen. The same house I grew up in, the one I'd once dreamed of buying myself, was now in foreclosure. My parents had taken loans, maxed out credit cards, and drained every last cent trying to save Derek. Again, the inheritance that was supposed to secure my future had instead become a lifeline for someone who kept cutting the rope. When I asked why they hadn't told me, my aunt sighed. Your mother was too ashamed. Your father, he still blames himself. But they're both hoping you'll come home. That night, I couldn't sleep. Memories came flooding back. My mom defending Derek, my dad saying, you'll rebuild. It felt like irony had come full circle. They'd gambled everything on redemption, and now they were the ones needing saving. Claire found me sitting on the balcony, staring into the dark. You're thinking about going back, she said softly. I didn't answer, but she knew. You can't fix them, she added. You'll just break yourself again. She was right. But there was still that small, bitter voice inside me, the one that remembered birthdays forgotten, achievements ignored, and love withheld, whispering that maybe this was my chance to finally look them in the eye. And when my father's message came the next morning, son, we need you. Please come home. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. The drive back to my hometown felt surreal. The streets I grew up on looked smaller, older, almost defeated, like time had stripped them bare. When I pulled up to my parents' house, the lawn was overgrown, the porch sagging, and a for sale sign leaned crooked in the dirt. My father stood by the door, thinner, grayer, his eyes hollow. My mother opened it before I could knock, tears spilling instantly. You came, she whispered, clutching my arm as if afraid I'd disappear. Inside, the house was unrecognizable. Empty frames where pictures used to hang. Dust-coated furniture. Boxes of unpaid bills stacked on the table. It didn't smell like home. It smelled like defeat. My father sat quietly at the kitchen counter, avoiding my gaze. "We made mistakes," he said finally. "We just wanted to save him." "Save him," I repeated. "You destroyed everything to save someone who didn't want to be saved." My voice cracked, years of silence boiling into anger. "Do you even understand what you did to me? You took everything, my inheritance, my trust, my dignity, and handed it to him like I never mattered." My mother sobbed harder. "We thought we were helping." "We didn't mean to hurt you, that's the thing," I said quietly. "You never meant to, but you always did." I looked around at the wreckage of what used to be our family home. The peeling walls, the echo of emptiness. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity, not for Derek, not even for them, but for the years I wasted trying to earn love that was never mine to begin with, stripped of everything but the smell of dust and regret. I realized something painful but true. This was the lowest point of my life, not because they'd lost everything, but because I'd finally accepted that I'd never get them back. And yet, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to anymore. The next morning, sunlight crept through the cracked blinds, painting the dust in gold. I sat across from my parents at the same table where we'd once eaten Sunday breakfasts, the table where they'd told me my inheritance was gone. Now, it was littered with overdue bills, eviction notices, and desperation. My father's hands trembled around a cup of black coffee. My mother looked smaller somehow, fragile in a way I'd never seen before. "I can help you," I said finally. Their eyes flickered with hope, too quickly. "But not the way you think." My mother reached for my hand. "We just need a little money to get through." I pulled my hand back. "No, I'll help you find a place to stay, get your finances sorted, maybe even talk to a lawyer. But I'm not fixing this. Not again." My father's jaw tightened. "You'd really let your parents lose everything?" I met his stare. "You didn't just lose everything. You gave it away. And you gave away me with it." The room went quiet. My mother's tears came fast, her voice breaking. "We thought we were saving our family." I stood, emotion tightening in my chest. "No, you were saving your guilt. You couldn't live with Derek's failures, so you made me pay for them." For once, they didn't argue. My father lowered his head. My mother sobbed into her hands. I felt no victory, no revenge, only exhaustion. "I'll make sure you're safe," I said, walking toward the door. "But from now on, I'm not your safety net." As I stepped outside, the cold air hit my face. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying their burden anymore. I wasn't their fixer, their silent son. Their backup plan, I was finally free. But freedom, I realized, comes with the quiet ache of never going back. Months passed after that day, and I didn't hear from my parents much. A few scattered texts. "We're okay. Hope you're doing well." Nothing more. Derek was in rehab again, this time funded by some government program instead of my parents' guilt. The house was gone, sold off to cover their debts. They were renting a small apartment on the edge of town, far from the picture-perfect image they once cared so much about, and me. I kept moving forward. My career took off faster than I expected. New clients, bigger contracts, my own team under me now. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about control. For the first time in my life, my success wasn't weighed against someone else's failure. Claire and I moved in together, and for once, home felt like peace, not performance. Still, there were nights when the past crept back in, the sound of my mother's voice trembling with guilt, my father's hollow stare. I'd lie awake wondering if I'd done the right thing walking away. Then I'd remember the years I spent trying to earn love that only existed when I was useful. Some debts can't be repaid because they were never yours to begin with. One afternoon I got an email from my father. Just 3 lines. "We've learned our lesson. We're sorry for what we did. We hope you're happy, son." I read it twice, then closed my laptop without replying. Not out of anger, but peace. The kind that comes when you stop fighting for people who never fought for you. Derek's name popped up on social media a few weeks later. A blurry photo of him at some halfway house fundraiser. He looked older, sober, maybe even tired of his own chaos. I didn't feel hate anymore. Just distance. They all lost something in the end. But I gained something better, the life they never believed I could build without them. And that quiet victory was all the closure I needed. A year later, I got a call I never expected, my mother's voice, frail and shaking. "We'd love to see you, sweetheart," she said. "We're not asking for anything. We just miss you." I hesitated. The wound had healed, but the scar still pulsed when I thought about everything they'd done. Claire looked at me quietly as I hung up, her hand resting over mine. "You don't owe them a happy ending," she whispered, "but maybe you deserve one." So, a week later, I drove back. Not to make peace with them, but with myself. Their new apartment was small, humble, almost unrecognizable compared to the home they once bragged about. My father opened the door with watery eyes and a weak smile. "You look good, son." My mother hugged me like she hadn't seen sunlight in months. For the first time, there was no guilt in their eyes, just age, regret, and the weight of consequences finally understood. We talked for hours. They didn't defend their actions or make excuses this time. My father's voice broke when he said, "We thought love meant saving the broken. We didn't realize we were breaking the ones who held us together." My mother nodded silently, tears streaking down her face. I listened. I didn't forgive out loud. Some things don't need words. But as I stood to leave, my mom whispered, "It's strange. Losing everything is what finally taught us what family really means." Outside, the evening sun hit my car like gold. For a moment, I looked back, not with anger or sadness, but with calm acceptance. They had learned their lesson too late, but at least they learned it. As I drove away, the road ahead felt endless and clean. They gave my inheritance to someone who squandered it. Believing I'd rebuild, they were right. I did rebuild. I just never built it for them again.